People Skills, Your Guide to Salon Success, is a communication course designed for hair, skin, and nail professionals. In this tape, Discovering People Skills, Jerry Poor presents the importance of rapport and explains the elements needed to build positive communication. Rapport is the cornerstone of all good relationships. It is also described as being in harmony with another person. Follow closely as Jerry reviews the 5 building blocks of rapport: understanding yourself, understanding your client, understanding the 5 phases of service, managing your relationships, and managing the phases of service.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. What we're going to talk today about is people skills and the importance of people skills in being successful as both a person and a cosmetologist, nail technician, esthetician, and even in our personal relationships. So the people skills book and this tape will run hand in hand, and that you'll be able to understand a little bit more how to use them. So we want to start out with People Skills, a guide to salon success, and so that we understand a little bit more about the importance of communication. Mostly communication is 50% content and 50% feeling, but where we get in trouble is the feeling. So a lot of times you'll see we say things and we ask someone about something and they say, that's not what I said, so we know that we may have missed part of the feeling. So what we want to do is, our goal is to use the people skills to be able to better communicate with our clients and with our coworkers and with our significant others so that we can become better people. And our goal is so that we could get into rapport with those people. So what we want to do is build a rapport relationship with each person that we encounter. So we want to review the 5 building blocks of rapport. And the first thing we'll have to do is understand ourselves. And in understanding ourselves, we'll be able to better understand the clients. So what we want to do, and what we're going to do in that, is take a care profile exam where we understand a little bit more about how we operate, whether we operate from left brain or right brain, keeping in mind that we all operate from whole brain. And so we all have a whole brain. And then after we do that, we're going to then understand your client. And you'll see what we'll do is we'll go through the different types of clients so that you'll have a better understanding of how to communicate with them, whether you communicate, think, or feel. Then we're understanding the phases of service so that we'll understand that we'll take the client from greeting all the way through the different phases to completion so that they'll feel just as comfortable when they came in the door as when they're leaving. So we don't stop the service abruptly and say, okay, get up and leave, goodbye. So we understand that we have to take them through all of those service phases, and then we can be able to be better service providers for our client. Managing your relationships, and this is very important. I think in today's world, we no longer can say to our coworkers, you must leave your problems at the door. You see, that's not going to work. I mean, if I'm doing hair, like if I'm cutting hair, and I'm thinking, my kids are on drugs, and my wife is running around on me, pretty soon I look down and the hair is too short. Or it's too curly or something, you see? So it's really very difficult. So what the people skills, what we're going to try to do is give you some examples of trying to manage that so that you can, not only not have to leave it at the door, but be able to control that situation. So that's really a very important thing. And then managing the 5 phases of service. And what we want to do is, think about this. We want to be in rapport before we turn the client's hair green. You see, we don't want to look at her and her say, this hair is green, without us already building rapport. So remember, the word rapport, you'll have to get in your mind what it is to you. Now you also have to remember that it is something totally opposite to another group. So you've got that in your mind. It's warm fuzzies to some of you, okay? And some of you it's what? Strictly business. Get in, get out, get on time, and do what we have to do.
Next, he will discuss the 5 barriers to building rapport: personality differences, blame, judgment, and righteousness, cultural differences, differing expectations, and service delivery problems. Any one of these can limit or destroy your rapport with another person.
So once we understand that, then we'll go into what we call the barriers of rapport, or what keep us from getting in rapport with someone, all right? So the first thing that we have to understand, and when we start to take the care profile, what it'll do is it'll give you the a new horizon to say, oh yeah, there are 3 distinct other groups out there that are totally different than me. All right. So remember what I told you. You're the one right for you. All right. You're the best one for you. All right. So one of the things you know when you go up front to get your client or your prospective student or whoever it is that they're all different than you. So we know when we go up, we expect personality difference. Now, the next one is very important. Now, watch how this works. If we go to a client and we are in a barrier of blame, judgment, or righteousness, then what happens is we don't hear the client speaking. All right. When I look at someone, if I go up to my client and say, "Oh my God, look, mine's purple. Now, what am I going to do with her? The purple one. Oh, look, she's got green dots on her forehead. What am I going to do with her?" Or I walk up and say, "Oh my God, look, I got the hooker." Well, see, what happens is now she's saying to me, "Look, my hair is really dry and frizzy and I need some help, or it's lifeless, or it's not shiny." But all I'm saying is what? "You sure are purple." And see, I missed all those things that she said to me. So when we're in that mode, then that keeps us from getting rapport. We will not build rapport, all right? And remember, the secret in building rapport is that the client will like us, or the client will cooperate in our business, or like I say, for example, like in McDonald's, you'll notice that that little speaker is non-judgmental. You see, the speaker says, "Would you like a pie? Would you like a warm, crisp pie?" You know, it doesn't say, "I guess you're too fat for a pie. You don't want a pie, do you?" Or it doesn't say, "I bet you're over your fat grams. No sense in me telling you about the pie." You see, so in our industry, what we do is our pies are what? Hair colors, permanent waves, texture, makeup, nails, you see. So when we relate it to that, you know, the speaker is totally non-judgmental. The one thing that you have advantage of is being in human relationships is what? That I build rapport. Sometimes you look at the speaker and say, "I didn't ask you for a pie." You see, because it doesn't have that human relationship to build rapport there. So next thing is cultural differences. And in international audiences, we can understand cultural differences very easily. But in our areas, oftentimes we don't understand them. They can be very simple things, such as like, let's say, "Oh, I like to eat pickled pig feet." Well, you're all going like, "Oh God, those are gross. I can't stand those." You see, then what happens is what? I don't buy any pies. You see, I shut down. I no longer am interested in hearing the pie story. You see, so it's very simple things, reactions that we go, "What are you eating for lunch? You know, what is that?" You see, so it's very simple things. It doesn't have to be as big as like when you're in Japan that we all bow, and if we keep bowing, we get down lower and lower and lower. You know, it's very simple cultural judgments. All right. Next thing is differing expectations, and in the service industry, what we want to do there is we want to make sure that the client is very clear on what the expectation is. Oftentimes in selecting a hairstyle for someone, we'll be using a front shot and we'll never address the back of the hair. See, I might assume that you want it cut off with a clipper. And that may not be how you envisioned it at all. You may have envisioned it pinned up. You see, and now I have a very different situation. As I go through some of the care profiles, you'll notice that some of them, and you notice with this with yourself, some of us don't hear well. You see, usually what we're saying is, as soon as he shuts up, I'll tell him what's going on. You see, so we're really getting ready to make our speech. So when I say to the client says, "I like my hair purple," and then I make it purple, and she looks and says, "My God, it's purple." You see, what happened is I didn't take the time to explain to her what purple was to me, or what purple was in that situation. So, and then the last thing we want to do is the barriers to keep us our service delivery problems. And in all services, there are going to be problems, and we try to just say that those are challenges. So what we have to do is try to calm that client down and try to figure out exactly what it is. Now, when you go through the care profiles, and you know this just as individuals without taking it yet, that you pretty much, some of you can solve the problem for the service delivery person. You see, you can say, "Okay, you've cut it too short. Now you've got to cut that short. Let's cut it shorter," or something like that. You see, so you want to be in rapport before what? The hair is green.
Style shifting. That's changing or shifting your regular personality style in a given situation to suit a particular person's personality in order to communicate with them more effectively. In this next segment, Jerry explains how these elements of style shifting can help you build rapport, changing the way you communicate, changing mannerisms, thinking differently, applying the law of requisite variety, experimenting, and risking.
We tell you the secret to the whole people skills situation, and that is being able to communicate in your language. All right, so it's not like we're tricking them. What we're doing is what we call style shifting. And style shifting is going to be, we're going to change the way you communicate. Now watch this. If you all are cosmetology students, when I go up to the front to get my client out of the reception area, I only have two choices to talk to the client. All right, so everybody in here fits into two communication categories. Either you are think, meaning you communicate in think words. So if I were going up front, I would say to the client, what were you thinking of doing with your hair, skin, or nails today? You see? Or some of you don't feel that comfortable, what would you say? What were you feeling like doing with your hair, skin, or nails today? You see, and then immediately some of you are smiling, all right? And some of you think people are going like, I don't feel hair, it's just dead matter up there, you know? And so what happens is we have to communicate in that. So in the beginning, and any time I encounter a person the first time, I judge them saying, what were you feeling like doing with your hair, skin, or nails? Or what do you think of doing with your hair, skin, or nails? And then I can carry it on. I can teach the student to say, or would you like for me to come up with a plan? Or would you like for me to come up with a suggestion? Or I just know you would love this. You see? So you can see that what's happening in the communication there, all right? So we'll change the way we communicate, and we'll approach clients, and I'll give you some insight on how you can do that, because you can't say, look, ma'am, I'd like to better understand you and better communicate with you. Would you take this care profile? It'll take you about 20 minutes to take the care profile, and I think we'll have more time and a better relationship. You see? So I'm going to have to quickly come up to someone and guess. Now watch this. Very low risk, though. Watch what happens. If I say to her, what were you thinking of doing with your hair, skin, and nails? And she says what? Well, I was feeling, you see? Then where do I go? Over on my feel side. All right, if I say, what were you feeling like? And she was saying, look, we're going to get along just fine if you do what I tell you. Well, see, I know she's probably over on the think side, so I'll run over there. Okay, so that's basically what the style shifting is. Very uncomplicated. We'll start with changing the way that we communicate, thinking or feeling. And what you'll do is as we go through the care profile, then it'll be your job to come up with an approach for each one of those so that you understand how I'll approach them. When I approach this kind of client, then I'm going to approach her in this manner. All right, thinking differently, and I already think that you're already starting to think differently. You can see that it's going to be a little bit. One of the things we have to do to think differently is that we know we're already wonderful, all right? But we've got to come out of that and start to think that I really want to communicate better with you, all right? One of the best ways to start out with that is to, whenever the situation is, even if it's a service delivery problem. How many people hate service delivery problems? You know what that is, right? They're coming in like, my hair is fried, and you did it, okay? Or whatever the situation is, you know. I've got my ESAR here, and, you know, my financial aid is all messed up, you know, or whatever the situation is. When that happens, when we have thinking differently, what I do now, and just started to do this, and I really love this, is whenever I encounter anyone, even if it's a difficult person, I just look at them, and in my mind, I'm saying, I love you. I don't say that out loud to them. I just look at them, and I say, I love you. And what happens, you're amazed, and it's amazing. It's just thinking differently. You ever looked at someone and they were saying something, but you heard something different? You know, it happens all the time, right? You say to your husband something, and he says, I didn't say that. You know, okay, or your wife. See, so now when I'm having even service delivery problems, even if they're just outraged, I just look at them, even if I don't like them. You see, I look at them and I think, what? Oh, I don't like her. And then I think, what? Okay, now you're being righteous. See, the McDonald's doesn't say what? I don't like her, so no sense in telling her about the pie. You see? So if I think, oh, I don't really like him, then I just look at him and I say to myself, I say to them, I love you. But I don't say it out loud, not verbally. So I just look at him. You see? And so now what's happened is I'm thinking differently. And now when I'm saying that, what's happening is I'm hearing better. Okay? I know that that's my biggest weakness is I don't hear well. You see? Because what do I want to do? Talk. You see, we don't hear well because we want to talk. You see, some of you are great hearers. Half of you are great listeners, all right? And half of you are talkers, all right? So what I do is think differently. So now I'm thinking differently. I apply the law of requisite variety. This is a real interesting thing. If you don't come away from anything with today except this, the person with the most knowledge will control the situation, even when they give up control. All right, so that's real interesting. So as you apply the people skills, the person with the most knowledge will control the situation even when they give up control. Example of me giving up control would be if I were working with a regulator, she's going to say, now look, we're going to get along just fine. You do what I tell you. And then she's going to ask for everything. Like I'm going like, yeah, right, lady. You're going to get all that and still have hair on your head, right? So then what I do is I have to give up control. Now, how do I give up control? I don't want to just say, okay, lady, you pick it and you tell me what to do. What I want to say is give her the options and let her decide. You see, in any situation, I can give her the options and let her decide. Now, I have to remember that what? She's still going to ask for what she asked for in the beginning, because she didn't hear well. So then I have to do what? I have to do that. What? And remember when I'm doing that, I'm doing the what? I love you, and you're not hearing well, okay? All right? So that's it. So you're going to keep this in mind, that apply the law of requisite variety. And the next thing is experimenting. You can sit here all day long. If you don't try it, it's not going to work for you. Taking the profile is not going to work for you. What you've got to do is say, I'm going to try this. Next time I go into someone's office, I'm going to say, what were you thinking of? Or what is your plan? Or what is your idea? And I'm going to hear it. I want you to go home, when you go home tonight, start listening to your little children. You'll be amazed. They'll say things like, Mommy, that's exactly right. Well, a word like exactly, is that a feel word? Or is that a think word? You see, that's a think word. And that child is probably thinking and going to communicate through life from that think side of life. You see? Or if they say, if your child says, Mommy, I was just feeling so good. You see? And you can see it. It's right there from the very beginning. Don't forget, though, what? We have a whole brain. Okay, so we're all four. I want you to make sure that you understand that. We're all four. And then risking. So remember what the risk is very low. What do I say? What were you thinking of doing? And if you say what? I feel, then I just get over there. So that's how style shifting works. This is going to be the secret. So we have rapport. That's our goal. Every person I meet, my goal is to build rapport with them. All right? It's not necessarily to get anything from them. It's just to love them more as human beings. All right? So that I understand that she's different than I am, and I'd like to be able to love her. All right? Or I'd like to be able to work with her. Or I'd like to be able to sell her a pie. You see? Or tell her about the pies. You see? All right? And then the secret to rapport building is going to be style shifting. So if you know that you come from the feel side of life, when you're working with a think person, you're going to have to go over there and try to come up with some vocabulary that will help you be able to communicate and think. All right, so it'll be style shifting. It's not changing, make sure you understand something, it's not changing what? How wonderful you all are already. Everybody knows that you're already wonderful, all right?
When dealing with decisions, problems, or tasks, we respond with either assertive or passive behaviors.
In dealing with situations, we are assertive or passive. All right, one of the things that we first have to get understood, though, is those of us that are passive, all right, we want you to leave us alone. We're very happy being passive, okay? A lot of you that are assertive, what you want to say is, go on and get you a backbone and do something for yourself once. You see, we're very comfortable being passive. We like that, okay? Actually, I changed the word to passive. We call it logical. Passive sounds sort of like it needs fixing. You know, something's wrong with it, all right? So we think passive is logical. So we'll talk about assertive behaviors. Now, where did we learn this, assertive behavior and passive behavior? When we learned this is when we were little cavemen and women, all right? And so when you were a caveman or woman, what happened was, first of all, which was really, really nice, was that it was okay to wear fur. You don't have to worry about anybody spray painting you or anything like that. I mean, you know, there was no human rights thing. Everybody was wearing fur, so it's okay. You know, you wear the fur and you just put it on and started doing that. Now, as a caveman, you had one thing to your advantage. You had the club. Okay? And so no one could take the club away from you. Now, let's start thinking about if you were assertive, all right? If you were assertive, here's what you would do. Now remember, life didn't change that much. When you were a caveman, still the goal was to get jewelry. Okay, you see today, the goal is still very similar, to get jewelry. That's the goal, you see? And so we do a lot of things to get jewelry. Now, when you were a caveman or woman, here's what the problem was. You had all your yard all landscaped and it was beautiful and everything like that. But what happened is there was these big animals that came in and started eating your landscaping. You see, and you just thought to yourself, you know what, I got to do something about this. I'm not going to put up with this any longer. So you just said, I'm going to get my club. And you look up at that dinosaur and you say, dinosaur, you come back in this yard. I'm going to take this club, beat the heck out of you. You just come on back in here one more time. I'm going to take this club and beat you up. Now, you do get jewelry that way, because what happens is when you beat them up, you get some teeth and you can start making jewelry. But it's a rougher way to get the jewelry. Now watch the logical people or the passive people. What they do is they say this, okay, let's think. What is the problem? Stay focused on the problem. The problem is the landscaping. What's the goal? The goal is jewelry. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's see. The problem is the landscaping. Let's do this. Well, let's see. First of all, the club is 3 foot long. The dinosaur is 49 feet 7 inches. I don't think we can do it with that club. So keeping in mind what the goal was, the landscaping and to get the jewelry, what does the logical person say? Okay, let's do this. Let's plant coconut trees all along the outside. We'll plant them very close and the dinosaur won't be able to fit in there. When the dinosaur comes in and starts eating the coconuts, the teeth will fall out and we'll be able to get the jewelry. You see? Very logical. Now let's take that and look at McDonald's. Watch the assertive person go to McDonald's. They say, I like to have a burger, mayonnaise only. Now watch what they do in the line. They open the thing up, they lift up the burger, and they look in there. Now all the people behind there, they're in the line going, geez, look at what line I got in. Look at that idiot up there. You've seen them in the drive-in too. What do they do in the drive-in? They're backing up. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be backing up. You see, and then no longer are they dealing with the person because they got the club. You see, and they say, come here, are you the manager? Get up here. This burger doesn't have mayonnaise on it. I want it with mayonnaise. Now watch what the logical people do. They get their burger, they get in their car, and they go back, and they sit in their office, and they open up the burger, and they put the fries in one corner, and the ketchup bar doesn't touch the fries. And they eat. And you know what they say? Oh, they forgot the mayonnaise on it. Oh, the fat gods are looking out for me. See, they knew I was over the fat grams today. Isn't that wonderful? You see? All right, now let's review assertive behavior. Remember, assertive behavior is what we do in dealing with situations. So we are assertive or passive. So when we understand that, is that the people are thinking or feeling, and then they come in chocolate or vanilla. No. Assertive or passive, okay, so that we understand that. All right, now let's take a look at, so that you can quickly recognize the assertive behavior. Assertive behaviors that look at you when talking, they say what they think, even when we don't ask them, all right? They give their opinion, even when we don't ask them, all right? They make decisions quickly, even often when they're not right, all right? They have firm handshake, they speak confidently, they organize, they lead. So this would be assertive behavior. So if I'm going up front to meet a client, I would know that she's probably going to get up and introduce herself, give me a handshake, and be ready to go, so we understand that. Now, in passive behavior, remember in passive behavior, I want you to keep in mind that this is what we call logical behavior. So it's always remember too, those of us who are passive are happy being passive. Leave us alone. All right, we like that. You saw we did just fine at the Burger King, all right, or at the McDonald's, all right? Passive behaviors, they oftentimes will say this. When we ask them a question, I don't know, what do you think, all right? They have difficulty making decision, oftentimes because they get caught up in what we call the decision-making mode, and they never get out of it. We just need to do a little more research, a little more investigation, and by the time they get to the decision, it's already done, all right? So they do not volunteer the answer to the question, even though they know the right answer. Many times they know the correct answer. They take time, they move slowly, they do not offer an opinion, They follow others. They tend to be tentative or have shades of gray statements such as, oh, give her a break. She knew the rule, but, she needs to give her a little slack and stuff like that. And they often have a soft handshake or sometimes no handshake. Like when you go up and shake their hand, they'll put the purse on it, and like you'll be carrying their purse back, okay? So in dealing with situations, this is how we would be, passive or assertive, all right? Now, remember what your goal is in service delivery problems is to make sure that we understand how to overcome that. So if I'm assertive, I'm going to come in and say, this is the worst perm in my whole life. You see, now you really know that it's not the worst perm. She's just assertive, okay? But you have to remember about passive people. Remember, passive people, the way that we are, those of us that are passive get back is that we don't come back. So if we pick up the phone and call, we've been sitting in front of the phone for some time. All right, thinking about, oh, I should call, no, I shouldn't call, maybe it'll be all right, maybe if I shampoo it a couple times or something like that. So we have to remember that. So if I'm a passive person and I call, send a limo to get me. You see, have someone come by and get me, because it's taken me a lot of energy to get up to the point where I can do that.
When dealing with people, we are either feeling or thinking oriented. Let's look at some feeling and thinking oriented behaviors.
Feeling-oriented behaviors, and these would be the behaviors that you would see the client exhibit up front. Smile, friendly smile, twinkling eyes. They look at you in the eyes. They have laughter. They introduce themselves. They speak before being spoken to. They're warm. They offer handshakes, hugs, and touches, and use many hand gestures. So I'll have a client who might be feeling and assertive or feeling and passive. All right, and then I have a client who is thinking and assertive or thinking and passive. So when I have that thinking-oriented behaviors, these are the behaviors that they will exhibit. Expressionless. They wait until you introduce yourself before they tell you his or her name. They maintain space between themselves, seem to be observing you. Thinking people oftentimes are sitting like this with their hands across, and we misinterpret that as cold, but that's really not cold, it's cool. See, what they're doing is checking you out. See, they're just looking at you, checking you out before they open up their arms. See, the feeling people, they just open their arms up to everybody. They're just like, hi, and the thinking people are like, we better check this out first. Okay, you see? So they seem to be observing you. They wait till you talk first. They discuss activities, not people. All right, for example, if I'm a thinking person, I come in, I might be talking about my job or the weather or some kind of things like that, as opposed to if I'm a feeling person, I would come in and tell you about my family and my children and all kind of stuff like that. They can have a controlled voice, not a lot of highs and lows, and again, oftentimes arms folded across their chest. So when we think about the thinking people, again, they come in an assertive type and a passive type. So that we see that there start to be a connection with the different types of clients.
The trait we use to deal with people and the trait we use to deal with tasks is combined in 4 different ways to make up the 4 personality styles of care. Consider this statement. You can only understand others as well as you understand yourself. The care profile is designed to help you discover your own personality style.
We want to break now and take the care profile so that then you can better understand who you are. So that what we're going to do is, remember that care profile is not a test. You're already the right one for you, all right? So it's not like she scored better than I scored or anything like that. And we'll talk a little bit about that care profile. But what we want to do is take a break and take that care profile test so that we understand who we are, so that we can understand, are we thinking or passive, thinking or feeling, passive or assertive. And so that's what we're going to do now. How's that sound? Good? Okay, let's do that.
As Jerry said, the care profile is not a test. There are no right or wrong answers. Rather, it will help you distinguish your behaviors and beliefs from the behaviors and beliefs of others. It will determine which of the 4 personality styles describes you most of the time. The 4 styles are called cooperator, analyzer, regulator, and energizer, which gives us the acronym CARE. Now pause the tape and turn to Lesson 3 in your course book. Complete the CARE profile. Once you have completed the CARE profile graph, restart the tape. Your primary personality style or pattern is indicated by the highest score of your graph, and the second highest score indicates your secondary pattern. Listen closely as Jerry explains why we often shift between primary and secondary patterns.
Now that we've taken the CARE profile, you have both your highest profile, your primary pattern, and your secondary pattern. Now, if you start thinking about it, it gets very complicated in that you are either left brain or right brain, assertive or passive. But actually, it's very, very simple to understand. So we want to think about how that I can understand the operating between two profiles. And what we do is normally I'll have someone speak to you, Junior, and you remember when you were like a little kid, and you went to the grocery store with your mom, you know, you had like one goal in life, and what was your goal in life was, when you had to go to the grocery store with your mom, you only had one goal, and that was to get the candy, you see? So if you think about it, like, when you have to go to the grocery store, which you hate, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get candy, all right? So now, let's think about this. Like, think about the primary pattern if I were a cooperator. So I would get up to the thing, get up to the line. Now, I know where the line is because here's what happens. On the side of that candy aisle, there are all those weird things, you know, like dog baby over here, like that. And see, when I scan over here, I know what's over there, candy. You see, so I can realize, even if I'm this small, as soon as I see those dog babies and things like that over on that side, I look over, there's candy. We don't go in that candyless aisle. Okay, that's not the deal when we're going to the grocery store. That's not the deal at all. All right, so when we get up there, I scope over and I see the candy, all right? Now, if I were a cooperator child, junior, what I would say, Mom, you knew I was so good and everything is so nice, and I really feel really nice, and I feel like I'd like to have a candy bar. And you see, what would happen is I would get the candy bar, you see. Now, if I were an analytical child or an analyzer, what I would say is, Mother, you realize that it's 2 hours, 45 minutes, 13 seconds since my last meal. And so my blood sugar level is 0.04 right now. And I'm probably going to have a very deep drop in the sugar level and have a seizure right here. And I would also get the candy, you see. Now, if I am a regulator child, here is what I say. You knew the deal. The deal was I don't knock over any old ladies, no cans, no pulling cereal off the shelf, and we're here. Give me the candy. Now, what would happen then if I was an Energizer child? I'd be going like, you know, the world is great, and that's the best candy bar I ever had in my whole life, and it's been so long, and I just love you, and I love all this. Look at that nice lady. She's so sweet. Look at her. See, I would get the candy bar, you see? Now, the one thing the mother knows, too, about the junior that's the Energizer is he doesn't take criticism well, so she'd never say, like, I bet you're over your fat grams, you know, because he'd be like, okay? So, now watch this. What's the secondary pattern? Okay, that's what happens when the first one don't work. So you go up until you're a cooperator. You say, I was such a nice boy, and I feel like a candy bar, and I love to have a candy bar. And she goes, you're not getting candy. I told you that before you came to the store. Now you kick in personality level 2. You say, well, you realize it's 4 hours, 15 minutes, 33 seconds since my last meal, and my blood sugar level is 0.04, and I'm probably going to have a seizure right here. You see, then I get the candy bar, you see? Or if I try to be really nice and it doesn't work, I just go, you knew the deal. So when we understand the primary pattern is the one that I most often got what? The candy. That's the one I most often get candy. Now, the candy might be something else. In the office place, it might be something else. It might be how I get in line for the copier first, or whatever the situation is, okay? So the candy is just related to a different. Now, the secondary pattern is the one that I kick in when plan A won't be, when plan A won't work, all right? Or in a given situation. Sometimes some of you are thinking like, okay, well, I'm a little bit more like that in the workplace, but I'm a little bit different at home. And so in a given situation, then you have that. So that's so that you understand the plan A or primary pattern and your secondary pattern. And mostly you switch before. Keep in mind that you are all 4. So you're all a little bit of all 4, okay? Now, I'll tell you a little bit about what happens is sometimes you're opposites, all right? And your opposite, you just need to understand who is totally opposite with you, because that is the person that you have the most difficulty communicating with. All right, so if you are a cooperator, your opposite is a regulator. All right, you usually perceive them as too bossy, too pushy, non-caring. All right, and vice versa. If you are a regulator and your opposite or your polarity is the cooperator, and you see them as oftentimes what? Too caring, and they want everybody to be, let's be happy and everything is wonderful and all of that stuff, and they're not getting the job done. All right, or opposite, if you are an analyzer, the person that you have the most difficult time dealing with is the energizer. All right, and because they're not factual, they're not precise, they're more expressive, and then vice versa, the energizer has the most difficult time expressing with the analyzer, because the energizer will be saying like, well, let's just cut like some bangs until it feels good. And the analyzer saying like, what, how many bangs, how many millimeters, I don't know about feeling hair or skin or nails, you see.
Watch Jerry's next video, Care Personality Styles, to understand and recognize each of the 4 personality patterns.